All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the recap. Michael D'Angelo flying solo this week. Mr. Big D, Daryl Ortiz, is off on a well-deserved family vacation, so hope he's having fun in the sun out in San Diego, and he'll be back next week when we do our Crown Jewel recap. That's right, Crown Jewel's only a week away, so you got me. You're stuck with me today for the recap. And there's not going to be a whole lot to recap if we're going to be totally honest here. It's pretty light in terms of for Raw and SmackDown this week, but we'll run through it anyway. This, as we said, is the lead up heading into Crown Jewel, so they're just kind of filling out the rest of the card. WWE Raw on Monday night opened with Rhea Ripley coming out to doing an in-ring promo, calling out Asuka and Kairi Sane, obviously for their attack the previous week, and then what they did to Io Sky. Io then came out next and said that Rhea was right about Asuka and Kairi, and she should have listened to her, but Io still loves her family. And then, of course, Asuka and Kairi Sane popped up on the Jumbotron, basically saying, if Io apologizes, all is well. It's too late for Rhea Ripley. And then Io started to leave, and the Kabuki Warriors jumped into the ring and attacked Rhea Ripley. Io was conflicted for a couple of seconds and then ran in for the save. And of course, Asuka, because of this betrayal, ended up misting Io in the face. And then the Kabuki Warriors basically overwhelmed Rhea Ripley and Io and left them destroyed, and then took off. And this is leading to a tag match at Crown Jewel, I believe. They're going to have that tag match, which makes sense. It's in Australia. You're going to want to have Rhea Ripley there. She's not going to be competing, obviously, in the women's title match. So this was pretty by the book. They clearly been building to a tag match with all four of these women. Should be a great one. Should be a lot of fun. They're all really talented. But yeah, by the book. Expected the setup for this. Immediately following this was the Intercontinental Championship match between Rusev and Dominic Mysterio. Dom ended up getting left alone at ringside by both JD McDonough and Finn Balor, obviously because he didn't help JD the previous week. There's still some tensions, so they were going to make him go it alone. Dom didn't really want any part of this matchup. He tried to leave. He did the, fake the hit with the title on himself and then tossing it to Rusev, a la Eddie Guerrero, kind of the lie, cheat, steal thing. Did that. This one was kind of a short match. He ended up low blowing Rusev when the referee wasn't looking and then got him with a surprise roll up. So it was kind of short and awkward and anticlimactic. So I'm guessing they're just going to continue to build to this one, but it seemed odd that Rusev, being such a dominant monster, was able to get kind of tricked, outsmarted, surprise rolled up and low blow by Dominic Mysterio of all people. That seemed a little strange, but it is what it is. After this, we had a video package promoting Seth versus Cody coming up at Crown Jewel, which was fine. Don't know that we needed it, but they got to fill out time, I guess. After this was Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, with Bayley doing her bipolar Bayley thing, we'll call it that. No offense to anyone who's bipolar out there, but this is really how they're presenting it, where she's constantly changing whether she's the aggressor towards Lyra Valkyria or where she's her best friend. So she's her back to being her best friend and invited her out to ringside. Lyra obviously was very confused by this and declined it. And so Bayley went out to the ring by herself to face Raquel Rodriguez, who is, of course, accompanied by Roxanne Perez, which is why she wanted Lyra there as backup. Bayley did kind of get dominated most of this matchup. It was fun. It was cool. They were in North Carolina, so you had a couple of tributes. You had Bayley doing the Twist of Fate and kind of doing the whole Matt Hardy Twist of Fate with the yell and then the turn. And then she attempted a Swanton Bomb that didn't look awesome, but she gets an A for effort for trying a Swanton. So we got the tributes to the Hardy Boys. And then she put on a figure four as a tribute to Ric Flair, but she didn't really cross her leg over, so it wasn't locked in properly. So I will say this, I love Bayley, but a lot of these moves were kind of sloppily done as tributes because she didn't have the figure four locked in properly and the Swanton looked a little rough. Essentially, Raquel ended up getting some interference help from Roxanne, and then Raquel hit the Tejana Bomb on Bayley and got the win. And then they jumped in post-match attack, double teaming Bayley until Lyra Valkyria finally decided she was going to come out and get the save. And then Bayley kind of snapped because Lyra was getting overwhelmed and overwhelmed the Judgment Day, but then kind of snapped back into being friends with Lyra Valkyria. So this is going to be, I guess, this is going to be the gimmick is, are they friends? Are they not friends? Which Bayley are you going to get? And Lyra kind of grappling with what version of Bayley she's going to get. It's entertaining enough, kind of is what it is. After this, we had LA Knight versus Kofi Kingston in an impromptu match that was made earlier by Adam Pearce. This one was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Kofi and LA Knight actually have some pretty good chemistry, I will say. I was kind of curious how this is going to go with LA Knight because they tend to job him out a lot. But he did get the win. He hit the BFT on Kofi and picked up the win. Finally back in the win column, but I just don't like this 50-50 booking with LA Knight, kind of winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one. Hopefully they can get him some momentum going, but gosh, you got to do something meaningful with LA Knight because he is the man. After this, we had Seth Rollins out alone for a promo to hype the match against Cody at Crown Jewel. Notable things, he said his 3 losses to Rhodes don't matter because both men are now at the top, so kind of whatever happens next determines the future of the industry. So yeah, I guess that's a pretty decent spin on that. And then he criticized people for chanting for Cody after all Seth is done. Cody came down, interrupted, his music hit. No pyro from the entrance for some reason. He did his whole walkout and then the punch down and that. And I guess the pyro just didn't go off. I want to say at that point it was the commentary may even mention, hey, he doesn't need pyro or not. That's what I think Wade Barrett said. So it's that was kind of odd and kind of awkward. And then Cody just came out and basically said that Heyman's pulling the strings. So Cody kind of is trying to sow the seeds of dissension between the vision that Heyman's really the one pulling the strings. But Seth's like, hey, no, every decision's run through me. And that Seth's writing a new future after Crown Jewel, and he's going to cleanse the timeline. Kind of strange. Solid stuff, though. Looking forward to that match in Crown Jewel. It should be great. And then we got the official announcement for Rhea and Io versus the Kabuki Warriors at Crown Jewel came after that. And then we had AJ Styles and Dragon Lee versus Los Americanos. This one's, so the match itself was fun. It was great. I really enjoyed the whole El Grande Americano being out there with Los Americanos is like this trio. It feels like AJ Styles and Dragon Lee together. They're great too, but AJ just had a little moment right before the match where he's like, oh, by the way, it's going to be cool to beat up John Cena at Crown Jewel. And that is essentially the setup for John Cena versus AJ Styles is an offhand comment from AJ Styles. So as we said before, I am really looking forward to seeing AJ Styles versus John Cena one last time because it'll be cool. But they didn't do anything to build this up. They haven't done anything to build a story between the two of them, and they're still not going to. Cena is kind of saving his last 5 dates, so he's not going to be making appearances to promote it. AJ's just doing other things and mentioning, oh, by the way, I'm going to be wrestling against John Cena, which is kind of strange. This was fun, though. AJ Styles hit the Styles Clash on Bravo of the Los Americanos. Bravo, and then he picks up the win for his team. Fun stuff, kind of inconsequential for me, though, especially since we got this match coming up between Cena and AJ Styles that just has no build-up, but that's fine. The main event was the Usos versus the Vision Tag rematch in the main event. I mean, you've had Reed and Breaker actually wearing matching gear, which is kind of cool for once. Tornado style match, so it was neat, fast paced, no disqualification. You had Jimmy getting thrown through the announce table, and which left Jay to kind of get mauled by both the Bronze for a good portion of the match. Jimmy eventually recovered, came in to help, and then it was too late, though. The Usos got stacked up for a double tsunami, which is where you got the big event for the night, was Roman Reigns music hitting. So we saw the return of the OTC, the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. He came out with a chair and just went after the Vision and beat the heck out of Reed and Breaker with multiple chair shots. Just absolutely no mercy, no DQ, so it didn't really matter. And then you had Breaker get hit with a super kick and then a spear, and then the double Usos splash, which is always cool to see from Jimmy and Jay, and the Usos ended up winning. And this one ended with Roman and Jay clearly on the same page, clearly united. They're like, forget everybody else. We're, it's just about us. Take out everybody else. They're yelling at each other, and they're like pumped up. Jimmy kind of off to the side. You can tell he's not really buying into all it's just us versus them mentality, which they've been kind of showing. That's the conflict between Jimmy and Jay, is the different approaches, and Jay kind of doing this heel turn-ish, and it feels like that's going to continue. Maybe Roman's more of an influence here to continue to push that. So I'm looking forward to that. Nice to have Roman Reigns making an appearance. We'll see how this goes. And that was how Raw ended. And then we had SmackDown, which opened with Cody Rhodes, which, again, I don't know that we need to do every single show. It's one thing with every single week, but every single show to hype up Rhodes versus Seth Rollins. But that's what we're getting. So when Cody came out and asked what he wanted to talk about on SmackDown, Paul Heyman immediately interrupted. And then the Vision, of course, was there. Randy Orton popped into the ring immediately. It was like they had no time to do this. Normally they'll do like 20 minutes, 30 minutes on these like promos. But it was just like, boom, boom, everyone's in the ring. And then Paul Heyman just cut a promo on them both. and tried to sow the seeds of division, kind of like Cody did on Raw, tried to sow the seeds of division between Orton and Cody Rhodes. And they're having a tag match in the main event. So Breaker and Reed versus, which Breaker and Reed was the main event also on Raw, was Breaker and Reed versus the Usos. This one was Breaker and Reed versus Cena and Orton. So division and 2 main events. So that was set up for later. We had Carmelo Hayes and The Miz have their confrontation. Obviously, The Miz was getting pinned in the previous week. Carmelo Hayes chose not to break up the pinfall of that. Hayes was ready to go and he headed out, which was funny because they said Sami Zayn's got an open challenge for the U.S. Championship. Who's it gonna be? And it's clearly Carmelo Hayes because he was in his ring gear and like oiled up and ready to walk out. So there was no mystery there. So immediately Carmelo Hayes came out and was like, hey, I'm here. I know we wrestled before, but he's going to show him like essentially who the real Carmelo Hayes is. Before he could do that, The Miz walked up behind him, hit him with a skull crushing finale to get that revenge. So we aren't getting Carmelo Hayes versus Sami Zayn again. Aleister Black just walked out and was like, hey, this guy's down. Guess I'll take that opportunity. And he came down and had a match with Sami Zayn for the U.S. Championship, which was good. It was really solid. It did end somewhat predictably. As I saw this unfolding, I'm like, at some point, we're going to see Damian Priest come out here and interfere, which he did. Damian Priest kind of walked out and just kind of stood at ringside and provided enough of a distraction that let Sami hit the Helluva Kick, followed by the Blue Thunder Bomb for the win. So Sami, of course, retains. I do like the fact that they're really pushing Sami Zayn's new, like, complete finisher is the Helluva Kick, followed by the Blue Thunder Bomb, kind of as this compilation of moves. The Blue Thunder Bomb kind of being the real finisher element for it. So I liked that. After this, Damian Priest kind of cleared off the announce table and just tossed Aleister Black through it with the Razor's Edge, which was fine and was what it was. After this, we got Chelsea Green and Alba Fire taking on Sol and Zarya from NXT. And it was fine. Sol Ruka did hit the Soul Snatch on Chelsea Green and pick up the win, which I'm like, why is Chelsea? I would presume in this type of matchup, Alba Fire kind of being one of the underlings would be the one to take the pin. No such luck. You had Chelsea Green losing pretty clean here to then I know she's the North American champion on NXT, but you're still losing to an NXT talent pretty clean. Chelsea Green continues to get jobbed out, and I wish they wouldn't do this because Chelsea Green is great. And I know people will say, well, but she's a professional. She's willing to put anybody over. I don't argue that at all. I think Chelsea Green is great and she's a professional. Of course, she's going to do what they ask her to do. I just wish writers wouldn't do that to Chelsea Green because she's awesome. She deserves more rather than kind of doing this, essentially getting jobbed out every single week is almost like this comedy performance. But that's what happened here. And then we got a 2-second backstage segment with Randy and Cody. And I felt like they were just running out of time where they were just literally saying, you got each other's backs, right? And that was it. And it was like, peace. Real fast. Then we got Nick Aldis out in the ring for the contract signing for Tiffany Stratton versus Stephanie Vaquera at Crown Jewel next week, which I don't think we got an official contract signing with Seth and Cody. So why would we just do one contract signing when we've got multiple champion versus champion matches that have been lined up? But we had to have an official contract signing. This one was fine. It was very civil. Both of them respect each other, but they both expect to win, and they're both looking forward to it. And it was fine. And then you had Tiffany walking out and holding her title up. And as she was leaving, you had Julia and Kiana James come out and attack her from behind and knock her down. And then Kiana James very awkwardly make a business offer to Stephanie Vaquera saying that she's made Julia like the top star, an even bigger star than Tiffany Stratton. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Julia never defends her title and has had like the least amount of visibility of any champion. So she's like the quietest women's US champion in history. Certainly not more popular than Tiffany Stratton, certainly not more prestigious than Tiffany Stratton, and not more over, but she's like, I've built her into this and I can do the same for you. And then Tiffany just kind of came in and jumped them from behind, recovered very quickly from the attack. And you had Tiffany and Stephanie working together to clear the ring. Segment over. Kind of silly. Didn't really make a ton of sense to do it. Felt like we were just killing time. And then after that, we had a tag match, which was a really good one. I'm going to say that this is my match of the night overall. Rey Fenix and Javon Evans versus Los Garza. A lot of fun. It was neck and neck with Sami Zayn versus Aleister Black for the match of the night, but I think this one edges it more just from the energy level and just the performances by everybody involved. Really great stuff. Love that they're pushing Javon Evans more consistently now, week over week. He's clearly a big star, going to be a big star. I feel like he has outrun NXT probably at this point. So love the push they're giving him. And he has good chemistry with Rey Fenix. And then they ended up winning, actually, Phoenix and Evans, which is great. I will say the impromptu tag teams on SmackDown are actually a lot better than the established tag teams on Raw, which is a sad state of the tag division. There's such a disparity between the two. After this, you had Kit Wilson in a wheelchair getting assaulted by Damian Priest. Skip just rolled him away. If you saw this segment, it was just kind of ridiculous. The Kit Wilson sitting there, just kind of dressed like he's going door to door and selling encyclopedias. And he's sitting in a wheelchair and then kind of stands up to Damian Priest. And Damian Priest pushes him in his chair and then rolls him down a hallway. And he's like, oh. And I'm like, dude, just grab the brakes and pull the brakes on the wheelchair. That's all you'd have to do to stop it. And you just hear it crash and stuff all over. So Damian Priest attacks people in wheelchairs, which is, I don't know if that's great for his gimmick. He's supposed to be a face. But after this, we got the main event. Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton versus Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. It started with like half an hour left. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be a really long main event. Entrances took like 12 minutes, which I'll say the entrance for Rhodes and Orton took like 12 minutes. And then Reed and Breakker took like 2 minutes. When the fight match finally did get started, you had Orton and Breakker kicking things off. Then Cody got tagged in and basically got isolated from a large portion of the match from Orton and was trying to get the tag. And so you had Orton finally getting a hot tag later on in the match and then running wild. Hit a cool superplex on Bronson Reed. Then you had Paul Heyman kind of going up, running over and started climbing up the ropes like he was going to do a tsunami, which is a little strange, to create a distraction, which allowed Seth Rollins to kind of sneak in and hit a stomp on Orton when he wasn't expecting it. And then Bronson Reed followed that up with a tsunami and took the win. So Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker pick up the win on SmackDown after losing on Raw. They all stood tall. The heels did. As they were leaving, Seth was like, I'm going to go back, because he saw the, you've got Orton, you've got Cody Rhodes. They're both still down. Rhodes is kind of in position to take a stomp. And Paul Heyman keeps telling him, don't do it. Don't do it. And of course, he has to do it. He can't help himself when he rushes in. Cody saw it coming from a mile away. He saw it coming from yesterday, stepped out of the way, and then was able to grab Seth Rollins and counter with the crossroads and stand tall with a big thing saying, hey, one-on-one. Cody Rhodes has Seth Rollins' number, is the way that they were promoting this, which tells me that Rollins is going to win. He's going to win at Crown Jewel because they continue to harp on Cody's 3-0 against him. When it's one-on-one, Cody always has Rollins' number. We might see Brock Lesnar come in and interfere, which I'm kind of half expecting that's going to happen. Lesnar will come in, he'll help interfere, so it still won't be one-on-one. But now, the more and more I see this, the more I think we're getting Seth Rollins winning at Crown Jewel. And that was it. That was SmackDown. So, again, most of both shows were spent on trying to push Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins and hype that up, whether it be through promos or hype packages or both. So really investing a lot of time into that one, which is funny because from the women's side, the two women's world champions, it's like the most casual, civil, hey, we're both great, looking forward to it. So they have done the kind of no build up because they're both faces. For that one, it feels a little bit like an afterthought, which is a sad thing because I feel like that's going to be a great match, but all the emphasis is on Rollins and Rhodes. So that's what we had for this week, everybody. What did you think of Raw and SmackDown? What do you think of Crown Jewel coming up? Remember, it's going to be bright and early. I believe it's going to be like 6 a.m. my time. I think 7 a.m. my time, somewhere around that. So it's very early in the morning next Saturday. What do you think about the matchups that are coming out? What do you think about Seth versus Rollins, or comments on Raw and SmackDown this week? We'd love to hear from you. So please leave those comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we appreciate all of the support, as always, on the recap. So next week, we'll have Crown Jewel recap for our 100th episode. Yes, we made it to 100 of these things when we do it for next week. And Big D will be back for that one as well. So like I said, that's what we got. I appreciate you joining me this week on the recap, and have a wonderful week. We'll see you soon.